Advisory. This training covers various forms of child abuse and maltreatment. In the event you have personally experienced abuse or know someone who has, it is important to realize this training module may trigger memories and reactions. If needed, please take a break, speak to an understanding loved one, or reach out to a clinician. At the end of this training, you should be able to recognize, respond, and report the different kinds of abuse experienced by youth. You will also know Scouting's barriers to abuse and how to utilize them to help create and maintain a safe space for youth. The Boy Scouts of America's top priority is creating the most secure environment possible for our youth members. We continually evaluate and strengthen our youth protection program to ensure it is in line with and, whenever possible, ahead of society's knowledge of abuse and best practices for prevention. We also regularly consult with experts from law enforcement, child safety, psychology, and other relevant fields. Abuse or maltreatment of a child comes in many forms. During this training, you will complete different modules addressing child maltreatment to help you recognize, respond to, and report various forms of abuse such as neglect, exposure to violence, bullying, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. As you take this training, it is helpful to keep these 5 important facts in mind. First, most abused and neglected children are maltreated in their own homes, usually by a parent or someone who is close to the child, including siblings, relatives, neighbors, and peers. Second, children who are abused in one way are often abused in multiple ways. For example, a child being neglected at home is also at risk of other forms of abuse, including sexual abuse. Experts call this polyvictimization. For our purposes, it means we must pay attention to all forms of maltreatment if we want to have the best chance of protecting a child from any form of abuse. Third, studies show that children who have been previously abused are at a higher risk of abuse by other perpetrators. This is because those who abuse children are very good at picking up on signs of previous abuse. Fourth, although our youth protection program cannot prevent every instance of child maltreatment in the BSA, our policies play an important role in significantly reducing the risks. The policies you will learn about in this training are designed to limit the opportunities an offender has to abuse a child and to improve your ability to detect signs of abuse or neglect. Both of these goals require your vigilance and commitment to keep youth safe. Fifth, building resilience. The ability to recover from adversity can help children overcome many life challenges, including instances of abuse. The BSA and you, as an adult leader in the program, play a huge role in developing resilience in children. Providing positive role models, guidance, support, and a safe space can tremendously help a child throughout his or her life.
Leading experts agree that child maltreatment is a public health crisis. Increasing education and awareness is a shared responsibility that will have far-reaching effects in improving our communities.
Centers for Disease Control, major healthcare systems in the country have said that violence, particularly child abuse, is a public health crisis. And the reason for that is we know child abuse is the feeding system for hundreds of other medical and mental health conditions. We know every year we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars dealing with cancer and heart disease and diabetes and anxiety and depression and a whole host of other issues. We could change all of that if we could reduce violence on the front end. The world would look very differently if we significantly reduced maltreatment. Whatever the social ill is that you care about. You want to reduce juvenile delinquency, you're going to have to reduce child abuse. You want to reduce crime as a whole, you're going to have to reduce child abuse. You want to reduce domestic violence, you're going to have to reduce child abuse. You want to reduce bullying, you're going to have to reduce child abuse. You want to reduce mental illness, you're going to have to reduce child abuse. Child abuse is the feeding system for almost every social ill in our country. Whatever it is you care about, you must care about reducing child abuse because they're connected.
When we have the opportunity to increase awareness with youth-serving organizations, with faith communities, with teachers and everyone else involved with these youth, we are able to provide a safety net around the children. So by implementing policies and by encouraging folks who see something to report immediately, to take action, to err on the side of caution, to educate the youth themselves on everything ranging from good touch and bad touch to online safety to the rules for interacting with adults and the rules for interacting with other youth. When we engage in this sorts of education and these sorts of policy making, then we can create a context in which there is no opportunity and there is no access.
The Boy Scouts of America has developed a youth protection strategy to teach parents, leaders, and youth the 3 R's: recognize, respond, report. Focusing efforts on how to recognize the signs of abuse, how to respond to a child who has experienced abuse, and how to report abuse will enable us to make a difference in the fight against child maltreatment.
The indicators can be very vast, but some things to really look for are potential withdrawal of a child or social isolation developing. Other concerning factors may be if you notice a dramatic drop in a child's grades at school or other big changes in a child's life. The biggest thing for any individual who is working with a youth-serving organization to know and understand is that each person has the capacity to either improve the life of a child or save the life of a child. And so it's really critical that if you have a concern that something is going on with the child, you see something that you are concerned with, you then go and say something.
Most people, most of the time, won't report no matter how clear the evidence. Now, that begs the question, why? Why won't we report if we even see a child being sexually abused? Well, researchers have asked that question to reporters. Why don't you report even though the law says you have to? And what reporters say to researchers is, well, I'm not really sure. Even if a child tells me they're being sexually abused, how do I know the kid is telling the truth? And I don't want to ruin somebody's career or somebody's life. Some people say, I didn't know I was a mandated reporter. I thought it was just for teachers or others. I didn't think as a volunteer in scouting that I was a mandated reporter. I didn't understand the law in that regard. Some people say, I've reported in the past and it always gets screened out, or if they do investigate, they don't really do anything and they make the situation worse. So I think I'm going to keep it in-house because that's really the best way to help. Some people say I don't report because I think, this could be really bad. I think I might have to testify in court. I think people will find out about it. I think if I'm a small-town doctor, I will lose patients if the word gets out that I make a report. Or people won't come to my daycare school anymore if word gets out that I start to make a report. And on and on and on. We have a number of reasons why we don't report. That's the bad news. The good news is, the better educated our reporters are, the more likely they are to overcome those barriers. So, for example, many say, I'm not sure I've got enough evidence to report. Once they're taught, it's not your job to be an investigator. You don't have to reach a certain evidentiary threshold. The law is simply, do you have a reasonable suspicion? And then make a report and let the authorities, the professionals, sort out whether or not to do anything with respect to that case.
What we encourage parents and Scout leaders and faith community leaders is to believe the child. That you always take that report. You always believe that child. You always follow up and refer up the chain until you get to those trained professionals who know how to interview that child and to decrease the obstacles that are getting in the way of that report unfolding.
Child development experts use the term resilience to describe the ability of a child to recover from obstacles and overcome adversity. Resilience is developed when children have meaningful connections with others and learn that they're not defined by negative experiences.
Boy Scouts were so important to me because we would go camping and hiking and meetings, and I was able to take myself on these imaginary journeys and forget what happened. So that's why scouting's been important in my life now for 52 years. And I couldn't wait for my Boys Life magazine to come, where I would read about the dude ranches and field mod and becoming an explorer. And that allowed me to take my own journey.
The fight against child abuse, both within our organization and in our communities, requires each one of us to be knowledgeable about the issues, willing to intervene, and engaged in making a positive impact in the life of a child.
The BSA has adopted mandatory policies called barriers to abuse for the safety and well-being of youth and leaders. Adults who use barriers to abuse inside and outside of scouting will reduce opportunities for incidents of child abuse to occur.
All adults present on overnight activities must be currently registered with the Boy Scouts of America. Registration includes completing an application, submitting a registration fee, a criminal background check, a volunteer screening database check, and completion of mandatory youth protection training. A limited exception for parents and legal guardians of Cub Scout youth attending Cub Scout events with their children is allowed. What is the limited exception for Cub Scouting? A parent or legal guardian of the Cub Scout is not required to register with the BSA to stay overnight with their child. The parent or legal guardian must review the How to Protect Your Children from Child Abuse, a parent's guide that is found in the front of each Cub Scout handbook. If you are a parent or legal guardian staying overnight with your Cub Scout and are not a registered adult in the BSA, you must be accompanied by a registered adult leader at any time you are with youth members other than your own child. If you are an adult staying overnight and are not a parent or legal guardian of a Cub Scout in attendance, you must be currently registered with the BSA. This exception only applies to parents or legal guardians staying overnight with their own child. For example, an uncle or grandmother who wishes to stay overnight, but is not the legal guardian of the Scout, must register with the BSA to stay overnight.
Abusers often try to isolate a child to create opportunities for abuse. For this reason, the BSA requires 2 deep leadership on all outings. 2 registered adult leaders 21 years of age or over are required on all scouting activities, including meetings. There must be a registered female adult leader 21 years of age or over in every unit serving females. A registered female adult leader 21 years of age or over must be present for any activity involving female youth. Notwithstanding the minimum leader requirements, age and program-appropriate supervision must always be provided. The barriers to abuse also prohibit one-on-one contact between adults and youth, both inside and outside of scouting. In situations requiring a direct interaction, such as a Scoutmaster conference, the meeting is to be conducted with the knowledge of and in view of other adults and/or youth. In order to abuse them, offenders often use digital communication to groom children, and we aim to reduce this risk. The requirement of too deep leadership and the prohibition of one-on-one contact with youth applies to digital communications as well, including texts and social media. To ensure no one-on-one contact occurs, leaders must copy another leader or a parent in all digital and online communications. Separate accommodations for adult males and females and youth males and females are required. Separate tenting arrangements must be provided for male and female adults as well as for male and female youth. Youth sharing tents must be no more than 2 years apart in age. In Cub Scouting, parents and guardians may share a tent with their family. In all other programs, youth and adults tent separately. Spouses may share a tent. Whenever possible, separate cabins or lodging should be provided for male and female adults as well as for male and female youth. Where separate accommodations cannot be provided due to group size or limited availability, modifications may be made. Where completely separate accommodations are not available, additional supervision is required. If adults and youth of the same gender occupy single-room accommodations, there must be a minimum of 2 adults and 4 youth, with all adults being youth protection trained. Physical separation by other means, including temporary barriers or space, should be used only when no other arrangements are possible. These modifications are limited to single-gender accommodations. Separate shower and latrine facilities should be provided for male and female adults as well as for male and female youth. If separate facilities are not available, separate times should be scheduled and posted.
The buddy system is a safety measure for all BSA activities and should be used at all times, especially on treks and when using restrooms or shower houses. Buddies should know and be comfortable with each other. Self-selection of buddies should be strongly encouraged, with no more than 2 years age difference and the same level of maturity. Buddies are always single-gender. These can be pairs or in the case of odd numbers a single-gender grouping of 3 is allowed. No youth should be forced into or made to feel uncomfortable in a buddy assignment.
Adult leaders and youth must respect each other's privacy, especially in situations such as changing clothes and taking showers. Changing, showering, and restroom facilities present a heightened risk for abuse. Adults should closely monitor these areas, but only enter as needed for health and safety reasons. Adults must protect their own privacy in similar situations. The barriers to abuse prohibit the inappropriate use of smartphones, cameras, imaging, or digital devices. The use of any recording devices in places or situations where privacy is expected is inappropriate. If it occurs, the device must be immediately confiscated to prevent sharing of content. The device should also be provided to law enforcement if necessary. The BSA does not allow any secret organizations as part of its program. All aspects of BSA programs are open to observation by parents and leaders. Adult leaders must monitor and guide the leadership techniques used by youth leaders and ensure BSA policies are followed. Discipline must be constructive and reflect the BSA's values. Examples of positive discipline include verbal praise, high fives, and fist bumps. Disciplinary activities involving isolation, humiliation, or ridicule are prohibited. Corporal punishment is never permitted. Proper clothing is required for all activities. For example, appropriate swimwear must be worn for all water activities. Hazing is prohibited and may not be included as a part of any BSA activity. All forms of bullying are prohibited in the BSA. This includes verbal, physical, and cyberbullying. All units, adult leaders, and youth members have the responsibility to adhere to and enforce youth protection policies. Physical violence, sexual activity, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, unauthorized weapons, hazing, discrimination, harassment, initiation rights, bullying, cyberbullying, theft, verbal insults, drugs, alcohol, and pornography have no place in any of the BSA's programs and may result in membership being revoked. The quality of the program and the safety of our youth members call for high-quality adult leaders. We work closely with our chartered organizations to help recruit the best possible leaders for their units. Chartered organizations play a critical role in protecting youth. The head of the chartered organization or the chartered organization representative must approve the registration of all adult leaders in the unit. If you see or suspect a child is being abused, stop the abuse immediately and report. All persons involved in BSA programs must report any instance of child abuse to local law enforcement, and in some states, also to the state's Child Protective Services, or CPS. This includes any good faith suspicion or belief that a child is or has been physically or sexually abused, physically or emotionally neglected, exposed to any form of violence or threat, or exposed to any form of sexual exploitation, including the possession, manufacture, or distribution of sexually exploitative images, online solicitation, enticement, or showing of obscene material. This duty cannot be delegated to any other person. After reporting to law enforcement, the matter must also be reported to the Scout Executive so appropriate actions may be taken. If unable to reach the Scout Executive, contact the Scouts First helpline at 844-SCOUTS-1, 844-726-8871. Ensure notification has been made to parents or guardian. Failing to report suspected child abuse may be a criminal law violation in your state. It is important to note that all states allow immunity from criminal and civil liability for good faith reporting of suspected abuse, even if it is later determined to be unfounded. In addition to the BSA's policy of mandatory reporting of child abuse to law enforcement, the following incidents must be reported to the Scout Executive and, if unavailable, the Scouts First helpline, 844-SCOUTS-1. Any threat or use of a weapon, any negative behavior associated with race, color, national origin, religion, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability, any abuse of a child that meets state reporting mandates for bullying or harassment, any mention or threat of suicide or harm to self or others. If someone is at immediate risk of harm, stop the behavior and call 911 immediately. If you see or suspect child abuse or maltreatment, call 911 immediately and make any other reports required by your state. Some states require that incidents of child sexual abuse be reported to Child Protective Services, or CPS. You can find your state's child abuse reporting number by clicking this link. Failing to report suspected child abuse may be a criminal law violation in your state. It is important to note that all states allow immunity from criminal and civil liability for good faith reporting of suspected abuse, even if it is later determined to be unfounded. After reporting to law enforcement, the matter must also be reported to the Scout Executive so appropriate actions may be taken. If unable to reach the Scout Executive and the matter is urgent, contact the Scouts First helpline at 844-SCOUTS-1. Ensure notification has been made to the parents or guardian as soon as possible after notifying law enforcement. Law enforcement agencies are responsible for investigating allegations of child abuse, regardless of whether it involves family or non-family members. Child protective agencies are responsible for investigating allegations of child abuse by family members. If a family member is alleged to be responsible for abuse, consult law enforcement or the local child protective agency for guidance regarding parental notification of reported abuse. The Scouts First helpline is a 24/7 resource when the Scout Executive is not available to immediately assist with incidents of child abuse. The helpline is a resource for incidents involving child abuse or serious risk of harm to children. It is not for general information or questions. For questions about training, policy interpretation, program, etc., please contact your Scout Executive
Remember, a child's behavior may or may not be an indicator of abuse, and child abuse can frequently be difficult to identify. Keep in mind that what you have observed is often only one piece of the puzzle. If unsure about concerning behaviors, it is always best to report what you have seen. When you see concerning behaviors, trust your instincts and report what you've observed to the program or activity leader, someone like the camp director or scoutmaster.
In summary, the Boy Scouts of America strives to prevent child abuse through a comprehensive program, which includes ongoing youth protection education for all volunteers, parents, and scouts, a formal leader selection process, criminal background and other checks, policies and procedures to serve as barriers to abuse, prompt mandatory reporting to authorities of any allegation or suspicion of abuse, a database system to prevent individuals who were previously removed from scouting from re-registering. These individuals do not meet the Boy Scouts of America's standards because of known or suspected abuse or other misconduct, either inside or outside the organization. Leading medical experts call child abuse a public health crisis and have called on every American to do their part in addressing this issue. The Boy Scouts of America is committed to answering this call. Remember, youth protection begins with you. Advisory. This training covers various forms of child abuse and maltreatment. In the event you have personally experienced abuse or know someone who has, it is important to realize this training module may trigger memories and reactions. If needed, please take a break, speak to an understanding loved one, or reach out to a clinician.
At the end of this training, you will be able to define sexual abuse, identify two types of sexual abuse, recognize characteristics of abusers and their targets, respond to sexual abuse, report sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is engaging a child in sexual activity. While this often involves physical contact, it can also include exposing a child to explicit sexual material or activities. Child sexual abuse is considered a public health crisis by experts and health organizations. Unfortunately, sexual abuse often goes unreported or undiscovered, but studies show that 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 6 boys will experience sexual abuse before their 18th birthday. The majority of sexual abusers are known to the child and to the parents. While most instances of sexual abuse occur in the home by a relative or trusted adult, sexual abuse also occurs outside the home across organizations in the community. While a majority of abusers are adults, more than a third of sexual abuse is committed by other youth. In short, sexual abuse can occur in any setting where someone could have access to a child. The most commonly known type of sexual abuse is adult-on-youth abuse. Abusers are often parents, step-parents, or adult family members. Abusers can also be other adults known to the child, such as neighbors, teachers, coaches, or youth leaders. Abusers misuse their positions of trust and authority over children to engage them through the grooming process into sexually abusive activity. A growing form of sexual abuse of children is abuse committed by other youth. Youth sexual abusers are usually older siblings, relatives such as older cousins, or family friends. Youth abusers are typically 4 to 5 years older, but may be the same age as the victim. Youth-on-youth abuse is more likely to occur during overnight activities, such as sleepovers and campouts, especially where there is little or no adult supervision. Youth abusers are more likely to use some type of game-playing activity that may begin normally but escalates into sexually abusive behavior. Youth abusers may also use pornographic materials to entice and manipulate younger youth. BSA policy prohibits sexual activity and all forms of public display of affection, including holding hands, frontal embraces, and kissing. Supervision, monitoring, and communication by adult leaders help prevent the following: youth engaging in any form of sexual activity, youth engaging in abusive, non-consensual sexual activity or relationships, youth attempting to meet up. Strict adherence to Scouting's barriers to abuse is key. Adult supervision must occur during tenting and nighttime activities and includes monitoring high-risk areas. Do not assign youth members more than 2 years apart in age to sleep in the same tent, and enforce the no drugs and no alcohol policies. Use of the buddy system and respect for privacy provide additional barriers. All incidents of inappropriate activity involving sexual matters, regardless of whether the activity is consensual, must be investigated and reported to the program activity leader. Inappropriate consensual conduct should normally result in parental or guardian notification and immediate removal from the program activity. Inappropriate activity may also result in revocation of membership. Non-consensual or abusive conduct must be reported to law enforcement. After reporting to law enforcement, the matter must also be reported to the Scout executive, so appropriate action may be taken. If unable to reach the Scout executive, contact the Scouts First helpline at 844-SCOUTS-1, 844-726-8871. Ensure notification has been made to parents and/or guardians.
Well, child sexual abuse takes on a number of different forms, if you will. It, by definition, involves inappropriate sexual activity by an adult or a person who could still be an adolescent, for example, themselves, with younger children of either gender. Sexual abuse is discovered often, but much more frequently is not discovered. So we really don't have an estimate of exactly how much occurs.
Sexual abuse can occur at the hands of adults. This is the type of abuse that most often makes the papers, that most people are aware of. The dirty old man or the school teacher that gets arrested or what have you. But in fact, there is a significant issue with older youth engaging in inappropriate sexual behavior and indeed criminal behavior with younger youth. And that is a problem that is, depending on which study you look at, is either a problem that's increasing in frequency or something that we're simply becoming more aware of.
Youth-on-youth abuse constitutes a significant percentage of child sexual abuse in our country. So, according to the United States Department of Justice data, 25% of all sexual assaults in our country are committed by children, those below the age of 18. It's very rare that the sex offender is unknown to the child or unknown to the family. They're usually somebody who's worked their way into the family if they're not already born into the family, and that is part of why they often get away with their crimes. First thing an offender does is they carefully select the community they want to be part of. They do pay attention to whether or not you have policies. If so, are they good policies? If they're good policies, do you actually enforce them, and are they accompanied with training? So the weaker you are on that spectrum, the more likely a sex offender will want to be part of your congregation, your community. Once a sex offender selects your community, they then begin to carefully study the children in your care. They pay attention to things such as, gosh, what sort of home does this child come from? Are they being neglected or abused in any way?
Grooming is, put simply, is a form of manipulation. It's very subtle. These men are very adept at utilizing charm and gradual desensitization to encourage the child to participate in what is really sort of bringing them down the path toward what eventually will become an abusive incident. They move forward to push the boundaries to see what the child will tolerate. When they sense the child may be becoming a bit uncomfortable, then they will retreat, and then they will do other things to desensitize the child. They may expose the child to pornography. They may expose the child to substances, drugs, or alcohol. They may engage in progressively more invasive touch, such as massages or other types of behavior. They may acclimate the child to photography, to being filmed. In our society, children are taught from very young ages to respect their elders. They're taught to that adults tend to give them good advice, whether it's a teacher or a coach or a parent or a grandparent. Adults are there to be respected. They have the wisdom and the experience in the world to provide guidance. They may take a role as teacher or as a faith leader or as a coach, someone who the parents, they actually see the parents relate to this adult in this respectful way. They see their own parent saying, don't speak to Ms. Jones like that. Don't backtalk your coach. If your coach tells you something to do, you need to do it. Or if your teacher tells you something, you need to be quiet and do it.
They also groom the parents of the child. So they pay attention to mom or dad and what are their needs. They'll help out mom or dad. They'll be the very best friend of the parents. They'd love to come over and play cards or have a drink or go to a ball game with the parents because they also know they need the parents on their side as well.
Pay attention to people who like your kids more than you do. And it sounds horrible to say that out loud because you want to think that everybody loves your kid, which is a wonderful thing. But we know that offenders most often use attention and affection to break kids' safety rules.
So the very policies such as too deep leadership that the Boy Scouts have, as well as no one-on-one contact, is very important. It's really a good policy for parents to follow as well. For example, if your child's invited to a sleepover, ask those critical questions such as, how many adults are going to be present during this overnight visitation?
So this is why we have policies that we're going to respect the privacies of kids. Adults are not going to be watching kids go to the bathroom. They're not going to be showering with these children. They will respect their privacy. We're not going to be skinny dipping. We're not going to be taking off our shirts, the sort of things that sex offenders like to do. That's why we have those policies. It can serve as a deterrent because it's one more barrier the sex offender has to overcome.
Abusers are smart. They will frequently study organizations and select those that have weak policies in order to more easily access youth. The abuser uses deception to blend into the organization he has chosen to target. It is difficult to determine just by physical appearance alone who may be harmful to children. The behavior and methods of an abuser, however, do provide red flags for other engaged adults to notice. Abusers don't simply groom youth. They also groom families, organizations, even entire communities. Through manipulation, charm, gifts, and favors, they slowly befriend the family to gain access to the child. Abusers are masters at sensing and manipulating a specific child's need for love, attention, and affection. They often escalate the manipulation into physical contact by using progressive invasive touch or employing sexual gameplay as a method of desensitizing the child. Identifying grooming behavior can be challenging. It may not appear illegal. However, it may violate an organization's policies or a community's code of behavior. Some grooming behavior is not illegal, but it may violate youth protection policies. For example, an adult may send a text directly to a youth without including another adult leader. This is a violation of the BSA's youth protection policies. It's okay to question people's motives and actions. You can do it in a way that is not accusatory or inflammatory. As an adult leader, your goal is to create a safe space for kids. Remember, youth protection begins with you.
I was a light sleeper, still am to this day. And I woke up in the middle of the night to her bedroom door opening. I didn't think much of it. Heard the door open, I looked over, and there was a man that lived in the home with her, and it was her uncle. So when he opened the door that night, looking in, I thought he was making sure we were both asleep and was going to leave, but that wasn't the case. And this man came in the room, and where I was sleeping on the ground, suddenly began stroking my hair. And I remember getting up, looking up, and I'm like, what are you doing? Finding it so strange. And he went like this. Well, of course, being a 6-year-old, having this authority figure standing over you, you're terrified. So I listened to him, stayed quiet. One thing led to another, pulled the sleeping bag down, and for the first time in my life, not the last, sexually abused me. And I'll never forget being so utterly confused. Why is he doing this? What is he doing? You know, I'd never been talked to about this. So I didn't even know how to put words at 6 years old to what he had done.
We had a regular babysitter. One time my parents were going out. Her son, older son, kept us. It's all predators. They groom you. And he had sexual acts with me, and then the threats, and then my life changed forever. All predators first, you know, they start with kind of telling you sexual stories, and you're not really sure what this is all about. Back then, showing me little sexual cartoons, little flip books, and just lulling you in. They lull you in, and you don't know about sex. You don't understand. You think it's okay. You're not sure. And then you realize, unfortunately, too late, that that's not something that should be done or you should be doing.
What he took away from me, what he fundamentally broke, was my ability to trust another human being in a way that still, even at that time, I was wavering. I had problems. It was hard for me to trust other people. But this was the first time in my life an adult had actually built up a sense of trust. I felt safe around him. He intentionally did things to welcome me into his home and into his heart. And he then acted in a way that completely shattered my capacity to trust and almost shattered my ability to be able to love anyone else. Who would I tell? You have to understand, my parents were not terrible people, but they were hurting people. They were people who had a lot of their own problems and issues, and I knew from a very early age that they weren't going to be able to help me or protect me.
I was a stay-at-home mom. We homeschooled. We lived out in the country. I could name every single friend that my daughter had. She did her homework online in front of me in the kitchen. My daughter was 14, but she was very naive. She was very sheltered. And we, because we didn't know what was going on around us, didn't have time to equip her. We thought that the natural protections of being very involved family,
tight-knit circles, being out in the country, were the kind of barriers that would give us some space. They don't work anymore in the cyber community. It all started very, very innocently enough, where he would talk to her about, is your family coming to the church meeting? My wife and I will be there. To, he brought a boy to church that she liked, and he picked up on it. And then the emails were all about introducing him.
Too many people think the pedophile is the guy or woman in the trench coat that flashes you, who looks, like you can see him. You can't tell, but there are warning signs.
So many parents sit their kids down and talk to them about stranger danger. You don't answer the door when we're gone. You don't talk to strangers. But 93% of the time, it's not strangers hurting our kids. It's someone you know and trust. But sadly, our society focuses so much on stranger danger, when we really need to be worried about the babysitter, the coach, the family member harming our kids. I definitely believe had someone educated me on this, I would have spoken up.
Adults should recognize that talking with children about maltreatment, especially sexual abuse, is not comfortable for anyone. Remember that a child's first disclosure and your response may have lasting effects. How you respond to a youth who discloses sexual abuse to you is important. Let the child know you believe them, that you care, and that you want to help. Finally, remember to report the suspected abuse to the proper authorities. People often come up with excuses for not reporting. They may be afraid that they are wrong, or that they may somehow hurt someone by reporting. However, in scouting, our primary concern is for the welfare of the child. It's always better to report a possible instance of abuse. If you see or suspect child abuse or maltreatment, call 911 immediately and make any other reports required by your state. Some states require that incidents of child sexual abuse be reported to Child Protective Services or CPS. You can find your state's child abuse reporting number by clicking this link. Failing to report suspected child abuse may be a criminal law violation in your state. It is important to note that all states allow immunity from criminal and civil liability for good faith reporting of suspected abuse, even if it is later determined to be unfounded. After reporting to law enforcement, the matter must also be reported to the Scout Executive, so appropriate actions may be taken. If unable to reach the Scout Executive, contact the Scouts First Helpline at 844-SCOUTS-1, 844-726-8871. Ensure notification has been made to parents or a guardian after notifying law enforcement. Law enforcement agencies are responsible for investigating allegations of child abuse, regardless of whether it involves family or non-family members. Child protective agencies are responsible for investigating allegations of child abuse by family members. If a family member is alleged to be responsible for abuse, consult law enforcement or the local child protective agency for guidance regarding parental notification of reported abuse. Sexual abuse can frequently be difficult to identify. Remember, a child's behavior may or may not be an indicator of abuse. Keep in mind that what you have observed is often only one piece of the puzzle. If unsure, it is always best to report what you have seen. When you see concerning behaviors, trust your instincts and report to the program or activity leader, someone like a camp director or scoutmaster.
We will now show 2 example scenarios.
When a child is sexually abused, it is almost always by someone the child knows and trusts. In many instances, the individual may even be well liked and respected in the community. What may appear to be appropriate interaction in a social setting may serve as the early steps in the grooming process for an offender. Through this grooming process, many offenders gain the child's trust through attention, gifts, and favors. The offender may also groom a child's parents to gain their trust, get more access, and increase the chance that the abuse will not be suspected. By offering the child inappropriate access to things such as alcohol, drugs, and sexually explicit material, the offender looks to create an emotional connection that enables continued access and may discourage the child from reporting this and future behavior.
In David's story, we saw how his abuser targeted not only David, but also his mother and the larger community. The abuser used progressive invasive touch, such as hugs, squeezes on David's leg, and tousling his hair to manipulate and desensitize the boy. The abuser also used one of David's favorite activities, baseball games, to further befriend and groom him. The scenario also showed how an abuser may begin to gradually introduce alcohol and pornography to manipulate a child.
It is not uncommon for the offender to be an older youth or to be in a position of authority, such as a youth leader, and have the trust of adults. Often, the offender will seem to be a friendly member of the group, but this supportive demeanor can escalate into a situation that sets the stage for abuse when youth protection policies are violated. The offender may seek to exploit the target youth, relying on their size or position of authority. The target youth is typically much younger, new to the program, or has some disability or perceived difference. Either way, the youth offender will look for opportunities to isolate the youth, typically when sleeping, showering, or using the restroom, when adult supervision may not be present. Unfortunately, it is not unusual for other youth to know about the abuse or to be present during the abuse. Because of this, it is vitally important that adult leaders remain vigilant and that other youth are willing to intervene and report any concerns.
In this scenario, the abuser was an older youth who was using his age and position of power to manipulate a younger child. The abuser was able to sense Charlie's need for attention or affirmation from the group and targeted Charlie for a private one-on-one relationship. The abuser acted on opportunities to isolate Charlie from the rest of his peers and away from adult supervision. The abuser also tried to manipulate Charlie by showing an interest in him when perhaps others had not, using video games or social media to privately connect with Charlie and gradually desensitize him with progressive invasive touch. The Boy Scouts of America offers a range of youth protection resources. To learn more about child abuse and maltreatment and how to prevent it, visit scouting.org/youthprotection.
Advisory. This training covers various forms of child abuse and maltreatment. In the event you have personally experienced abuse or know someone who has, it is important to realize this training module may trigger memories and reactions. If needed, please take a break, speak to an understanding loved one, or reach out to a clinician. After completing this training, you will be able to define, recognize, respond to, and report bullying to ensure that youth have a safe space to grow and succeed. Bullying is unwanted aggressive behavior by an adult, youth, or group that involves an observed or perceived power imbalance that is likely to be repeated. Bullies and those being bullied may have serious, lasting problems. The imbalance of power created by bullying can come from any combination of the factors listed. The harmful effects of bullying are frequently felt by friends and families and can hurt the overall health and safety of schools, neighborhoods, and society. Bullying happens in various ways and can be broken down into 3 categories. Verbal bullying includes name-calling and teasing, as well as taunting, inappropriate sexual comments, and threatening to cause harm. Social bullying is hurting someone's reputation or relationships, spreading rumors, leaving the target out of activities, and breaking up or manipulating friendships. This can happen in person, online, or in group settings. Physical bullying may include hitting, pushing, shoving, and physical coercion. It may also include taking, damaging, or destroying someone else's possessions. When people think about bullying, they typically think about in-person bullying, but bullying can happen anywhere, in person, online, or within groups.
Cyber or gaming bullying, a rapidly growing form of social bullying, uses the internet, texting, and social media to harass the target. Cyber or gaming bullying encompasses sending or posting text or instant messages with hostile or degrading comments, embarrassing digital images, and fictitious online posts intended to humiliate, threaten, or coerce. These threats and hostile behavior are magnified with the use of digital technology. As a result, the target may be devastated by what is posted, become depressed, avoid school or social activities, or have suicidal thoughts. In extreme circumstances, cyber or gaming bullying can lead to suicide.
Bullying can have serious and potentially lasting effects. Those who have been bullied often exhibit higher rates of health problems that can include depression and anxiety, sadness, loneliness, changes in sleeping and eating patterns, and loss of interest in social or family activities. They may have decreased academic achievement and school participation, such as missing, skipping, or dropping out of school. Youth may become aggressive or show violent retaliation or have increased thoughts about self-harm.
It's critical for leaders everywhere in youth service organizations to make sure that they are monitoring for any individual who may try to exert power and control over another child, and also look for signs of belittling and demeaning that child. Also, some forms of bullying take on a physical nature, and one child may try to physically injure another child. What people have to watch for is the interactions between children at specific events. Look for things such as name-calling, or a child being left out from other children's activities, or other things that indicate that one child is trying to exclude another child or exert some type of undue influence over them.
Whenever we talk about bullying behavior prevention, whether it's online, whether it's in real life, there are multiple groups of people who are who are making choices. It's the target, the person who's being targeted. They have some ability to make choices to hopefully prevent this behavior, but they're kind of in the position of least able to fix this. Then there's the person who's causing the harm. They have a lot of abilities to make different choices where they aren't causing harm. What can we do to build up empathy? What can we do to get rid of contempt? Might be one of the harder groups to change around the behavior, but we have to acknowledge that part of prevention is actually reaching out to the person who's causing the harm and say, don't harm. And then that third group are the people who are just watching it play out, the bystanders. And they actually have a huge amount of power as they work to stand up for the person being targeted by offering support.
There's some research that says the best way to rein in bullying, the best way to rein in dangerous behavior is to not focus just on each of us and teaching each of ourselves personal safety, but teaching everybody to look out for one another. I have a job to look out for you, you have a job to look out for me. In creating an environment where we see something inappropriate, such as bullying, we all speak up. We all stand up against the bully.
Professionally, I deal a lot with the cyberbullying issue when young people use technology to show contempt, to hurt, or to harm. The good news is only 1 in 5 teens, when they see people being mean online, will actually join in. 4 out of 5 teens won't join in. And so we want to make sure that we're giving tools to the majority, the ones who aren't causing the harm online, of what do you do if you're seeing cyberbullying? What are you doing if you're seeing this type of bullying behavior playing out? How can you be supportive without walking into the line of fire? You know, we don't feed the trolls, we don't fan the flames, but how can we be a support?
The reason we have policies of no secret organizations is offenders thrive on secrecy. They love to have a group, whether it's a group of youth or a group of youth and adults, where there's a secret and there's a bond that, whatever we do, whatever we say here will not be shared with others. So secret organizations can lead to bullying, to hazing, can make it easier to sexually violate a child. So that's the reason Boy Scouts and other responsible organizations have strict prohibitions on secret organizations. And it begins with teaching kids personal safety, teaching kids how to be an upstander, role-playing, what that might look like, getting them to practice, and then let the education take root. Most people want to do the right thing if we teach them how to do that.
So how do you offer support to the person being targeted? Is it just sending them a private text saying, I'm sorry that this is happening right now. If you want to hang out with my group at lunch until this blows over, you're very much welcome at our lunch table. You know, something that simple, to just even, a message saying, just, no one else believes that this is true. We have your back, whatever it is, but offering quiet support to the target can make a world of difference, because one of the issues with cyberbullying is it feels like it's everywhere.
There are many warning signs that may indicate that someone is either being bullied or is bullying others. Recognizing the warning signs is the first step in stopping bullying. There are often signs that a child is being bullied, including self-destructive behavior, running away, or avoiding certain youth or areas where the abuse happens. However, be aware that not all children being bullied exhibit warning signs. Keep in mind that the majority of children who are bullied do not ask for help, which makes talking with children who show signs of being bullied or being bullies themselves very important. There are also signs that a youth may be bullying others. These include getting into frequent fights, being overly aggressive or blaming others for problems, or youth that require repeated adult supervision or disciplinary action. Be vigilant and pay particular attention to youth exhibiting these behaviors so you can intervene if needed. Research shows that many times bullies have experienced bullying themselves. By intervening, you may help break the cycle of bullying.
As a leader, you can often identify those who might be the target of bullying. Unfortunately, any youth can experience bullying. Anything that makes a youth unique can also make them a potential target, including sexual identity or orientation, race, ethnicity, or language, religion, having limited social skills, either low or high intelligence, physical condition such as being overweight or underweight, or people with special health care needs. Please be aware of these characteristics so you can keep a watchful eye and help prevent or stop bullying.
The best way to prevent this type of behavior is to set the example by creating a positive environment. Teach youth about bullying. Let them know that bullying behavior is wrong, and encourage everyone to look out for one another, to be an upstander, not a bystander, and remind them that if you see bullying, stop it and report it. Keep in mind that how you respond to bullying is important and can have a lasting impact on the person being bullied and the person doing the bullying. Don't use labels like victim or even bully. Don't assume the problem will go away or work itself out. And don't make the youth immediately apologize individually, especially in a group setting.
Attitudes about bullying have changed over the years. Once upon a time, bullying was seen by some as just boys being boys or girls being girls, or just let them work it out. They'll be best friends tomorrow. Today, We know the tremendous impact bullying can have for everyone involved. When you see bullying behavior, either in person or online, don't overlook it or wait for it to work itself out. Break the cycle of bullying by intervening.
Most instances of bullying and harassment go unreported. This happens for a variety of reasons. Youth may be afraid no one will believe them, or that they will be seen as weak. They may even blame themselves for the bullying. Because of these reasons and more, your intervention as a leader is critical.
Bullying is a serious issue that requires immediate intervention by adults. In instances where there is a threat of physical harm or serious mental health concerns, immediately report to law enforcement and the Scout executive, and if unavailable, contact the Scouts First Helpline at 844-SCOUTS-1, 844-726-8871. Ensure notification has been made to the parents or guardian. Bullying can frequently be difficult to identify. Keep in mind that what you observe is often only one piece of the puzzle. If unsure, it's always safest to report. When you see concerning behaviors, trust your instincts. Follow up with your program or activity leader.
What some may consider teasing becomes more serious when directed towards people of a different race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, physical ability, or religion. It is possible that a person may not intend to bully, but the action is harmful anyway. Here, the bullying started with the children making fun of a child for praying and practicing his faith. Instead of laughing at the behavior, it is important that adults intervene immediately to model respect for others. If left unaddressed, the behavior could lead to physical aggression, social withdrawal, or trigger other emotional problems.
The Boy Scouts of America offers a range of youth protection resources. To learn more about child abuse prevention and maltreatment, visit scouting.org/youthprotection.